The transport ship landed on Kethmora with a soft thud, sending small clouds of red dust into the air. Inside, Taman checked his equipment one last time. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Next to him, Haywan adjusted her glasses and looked at the datapad in her hands. She had been reading about the Vraxel for 3 months straight. Dae-hyun, the youngest of the three, stood by the door with his arms crossed. He looked excited. "Ready?" Taman asked. "As ready as we can be," Haywan replied, "though I still think this is crazy." The door opened. Hot air rushed in. Outside, the hunting ground stretched for miles. Rocky hills rose in the distance. Thick forests covered the valleys. It looked beautiful and dangerous at the same time. A group of Vraxel warriors waited for them. The aliens stood 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in thick scales that shimmered like metal. They had powerful arms that ended in claws as long as knives. Their faces looked like a mix between a lizard and a wolf. Sharp teeth filled their mouths. Their eyes were large and golden, with vertical pupils that tracked every movement. The leader stepped forward. He wore armor that had seen many battles. Scars crossed his snout and chest. "I am Commander Roktar," he said in a deep voice. "You are the humans?" "We are," Taman said. He did not look afraid, even though the commander was twice his size. Roktar made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The matriarch hired you to observe our training. I do not know why. Your species is weak. You have no claws, no armor, no real strength. What can you teach warriors?" Taman smiled a little. "We will see." They followed the warriors through a stone archway. Beyond it lay a massive training ground. Hundreds of Vraxel cubs were scattered across the area. Some practiced fighting moves. Others lifted heavy stones to build strength. A few ran obstacle courses that would break a human's bones. Cubs was not quite the right word. These were teenagers by human standards. They stood 6 feet tall already. Their claws were sharp. Their muscles were strong. But they were still young, still learning. Haywan watched carefully. She noticed something right away. "They train alone," she whispered to Taman. He nodded. Each cub practiced by themselves. They did not work in groups. They did not talk to each other much. When 2 cubs sparred, it was always 1 against 1. No teamwork, no coordination. An adult warrior demonstrated a move. He swung his claws in a powerful arc. 3 cubs tried to copy him. Each one tried to make the move stronger, faster, more impressive than the others. "They compete with each other," Dae-hyun observed, "even during training. For 3 days, the humans just watched. They took notes. They asked questions." The warrior lords answered with barely hidden annoyance. Why did the humans care about terrain? Why did they ask about communication between fighters? Why did they want to know the history of the trials? On the 3rd day, Haywan sat with Taman and Dae-hyun in their small quarters. She spread maps and notes across the table. "The trials happen in 2 weeks," she said. 30 cubs will enter the hunting grounds. 15 adult warriors will hunt them. The cubs are supposed to prove themselves by fighting the adults. "How many usually survive?" Dae-hyun asked. "About 9. Sometimes less." Her voice was quiet. "The Vraxel see it as necessary. Only the strongest should survive." Taman studied the maps. "What are the rules?" "There are no real rules. The cubs enter at dawn. They have until sunset. If they survive, they pass. Most try to fight the adults in single combat. They think it is honorable." "It is stupid," Dae-hyun said flatly. Haywan nodded. "Agreed. These cubs are strong and fast. But the adults are stronger and faster. More experienced, better trained. 1 cub against 1 adult warrior? The cub loses almost every time. So they throw away 70% of their youth," Taman said. "Generation after generation." "Tradition," Haywan replied. Taman stood up. "Then we changed the tradition." The next morning, Taman requested a meeting with Commander Roktar. The warrior looked annoyed but agreed. The matriarch had ordered him to cooperate with the humans. "We want to speak with the cubs," Taman said. "Why?" "We have observations to share." Roktar's eyes narrowed. "You want to teach them?" "We want to talk to them." The commander made a growling sound but agreed. That afternoon, 30 cubs gathered in a large training hall. They looked at the 3 humans with curiosity. Some seemed interested. Others looked doubtful. Taman stood in front of them. He did not try to seem impressive. He just looked at them calmly. "My name is Taman," he said. "These are Haywan and Dae-hyun. We are human. Our species is weak compared to yours. We cannot tear through metal with our hands. We cannot run for days without rest. We do not have armor or claws. The cubs shifted. They did not understand why this human was listing his species' weaknesses. But humans rule our homeworld, Taemin continued. We conquered every predator that tried to eat us. We survived ice ages and droughts. We built cities and spaceships. Do you know how? A cub near the front spoke up. She was smaller than the others. Her name was Bora. Technology? She guessed. Before technology, Taemin said. Before we had guns or computers. How did weak, slow, clawless humans become the top predator on Earth? No one answered. We learned to think, Haewon said, stepping forward. We learned that fighting fair is something you do when you are strong. When you are weak, you fight smart. Another cub, Yongsoo, frowned. That sounds like cowardice, does it? Daehyun asked. If I challenged Commander Rocktar to single combat, I would die. He is bigger and stronger, but what if I chose the battlefield? What if I made him fight where I am strong and he is weak? What if I did not fight him at all, but made the environment my weapon? The cubs looked confused. Taemin pulled out a small device. A hologram appeared, showing an ancient human battle. This is the Battle of Thermopylae, he said. 300 soldiers held off an army of thousands. They did not do it by being stronger. They chose a narrow mountain pass. The enemy could only attack a few at a time. Geography became a weapon. He showed them another image. This is Cannae. A smaller army surrounded and destroyed a larger one, not by fighting harder, but by fighting smarter. For an hour, the humans showed the cubs battles from human history. They explained concepts that the Vraxil had never considered. Ambushes, flanking, using terrain, coordinated attacks, tactical retreats that were not cowardice but strategy. Bora leaned forward, fascinated. Yongsoo asked question after question. A fierce cub named Eunha looked skeptical but interested. Finally, Taemin turned off the hologram. In 2 weeks, you face the trials. 15 adults will hunt 30 of you. You are supposed to fight them with honor. Most of you will die. The survivors will say it was necessary, that only the strong deserve to live. He looked at each cub. We are here to teach you something different. We are here to teach you that smart beats strong, that 30 of you working together can defeat 15 adults working alone, that survival is not just about individual strength. It is about using every advantage you have. The warrior lords will be angry, a cub said nervously. Yes, Taemin agreed. They will call it cheating, dishonor, cowardice. Do you know what humans call it? What? Bora asked, winning. The hall was silent. Then slowly cubs started nodding. Something in their eyes changed. They looked at each other differently now, not as competitors. As potential allies, Commander Rocktar stood in the doorway. He had been listening. His face showed anger and something else, maybe fear. The humans were changing everything. They were teaching the cubs to think like prey animals, like humans, and he had no idea how dangerous that could be. The training hall became their classroom. Every morning, the 30 cubs gathered to learn from the humans. The warrior lords watched from a distance with dark expressions. They did not like what was happening, but the matriarch had given her permission. They could do nothing but watch. Haewon started each day with history lessons. Not Vraxil history, human history. She showed them wars that happened thousands of years ago on Earth. At first, the cubs did not understand why this mattered. Watch this, she said, displaying a simulation of an ancient battle. These soldiers are surrounded. The enemy has more fighters, better weapons. By all logic, these soldiers should lose. The cubs watched as the smaller army formed a tight circle. They moved as one unit. When the enemy attacked from one side, the defenders shifted. They covered each other, protected each other's weak spots. The enemy had more soldiers but could not break through the coordination. They moved like a single creature, Yongsoo said, amazed. Exactly, Haewon replied. One soldier is weak. 100 soldiers moving together are unstoppable. This is what your training does not teach you. It makes you strong as individuals. But it does not make you strong as a group. Bora raised her hand. How do we learn to move together? We have always trained alone. That is what we are here to teach. Daehyun took over the afternoon sessions. He taught them about terrain. He showed them the maps of the hunting grounds. Every hill, every valley, every cave and river and forest. You have run through these grounds your whole lives, he said. But have you really looked at them? Have you seen how this canyon creates a bottleneck? How this hill gives a view of 3 different paths. How these rocks provide cover from multiple directions. The cubs had never thought about it before. The hunting grounds were just the place where they would fight, where they would prove themselves or die trying. Land is a weapon, Daehyun explained. If you understand it better than your enemy, you already have an advantage. An adult warrior is stronger than you, faster than you, more skilled than you, but if you make him fight on your terms, in a place that helps you, suddenly you are equal. He made them study the maps for hours. He quizzed them on every feature. Where would you hide? Where would you set an ambush? Where would you run if you needed to escape quickly? The cubs who thought this was boring at first soon realized it was fascinating. Yunha, who was aggressive and impatient, struggled with this at first. She wanted to practice fighting, not stare at maps. This is boring, she complained. When do we learn to fight better? Taemin looked at her calmly. You already know how to fight. Every cub here can use their claws and teeth. You have trained in combat your whole lives. We are not here to make you better fighters. We are here to make you smarter fighters. What is the difference? A better fighter wins one battle. A smarter fighter wins every battle. In the evenings, they played games. This surprised the cubs most of all. Games? They had 2 weeks until the trials. Should they not be training harder? But these were not normal games. They were war games. Strategy games. Haewon set up scenarios on a table with small pieces representing warriors. You are here, she said, pointing to the pieces. The enemy is there. You are outnumbered. What do you do? At first, the cubs gave simple answers. Attack. Run. Fight hard. Not good enough, Haewon said. Think, what do you know about the enemy? What do you know about the land? What resources do you have? What is your goal? She made them think about every detail. The cubs learned to ask questions before making decisions. Where exactly is the enemy? What weapons do they have? What time of day is it? Is anyone tired or injured? What happens if we win? What happens if we lose? Bora was brilliant at these games. Her body was smaller than the other cubs, but her mind was quick. She saw patterns that others missed. She thought several moves ahead. Soon other cubs were asking her for advice. Yongsoo excelled at understanding terrain. He could look at a map and immediately see the best positions, the best escape routes, the weak points in any defense. Yunha learned to channel her aggression. Instead of just wanting to attack, she learned when to attack. Where to attack, how to attack with others to make the assault devastating. The humans also taught them to communicate. Vraxel cubs rarely talked during combat. They fought alone, so they did not need to. But working as a team required talking, planning, listening. You need signals, Daehyun explained. Ways to tell each other what to do without speaking. What if you are hiding and cannot talk? What if you are far apart? They developed simple hand signals. A raised claw meant danger. A closed fist meant stop. Pointed directions showed where to move. The cubs practiced until the signals became automatic. More importantly, they learned to trust each other. This was hard at first. Vraxil culture was about individual achievement. Relying on another felt weak. One of you will fail, Taemin told them bluntly during training. Maybe you will slip. Maybe you will get tired. Maybe you will make a mistake. If you are alone, that failure means death. But if you have allies, they catch you. They cover for you. They help you. He made them practice this. One cub would pretend to be injured. Others had to adapt their plan to protect the injured one. One cub would be cut off from the group. Others had to find a way to get them back safely. It was frustrating. Cubs who were used to showing off their individual skills now had to hold back. Wait for others. Match their pace to the slowest member. Share glory instead of claiming it all. But slowly they got better. By the end of the first week, the 30 cubs moved differently. When they walked to training, they walked together. When they ate, they sat in groups and talked about strategy. When they practiced combat, they practiced in pairs and trios, learning how to fight as a unit. The warrior lords grew more concerned each day. Commander Rokhtar approached Taemin one evening. You are ruining them, he said. His voice was low and angry. They do not act like Vraxil warriors anymore. They act like a hive mind, like insects that cannot think for themselves. They think more now than ever, Taemin replied. Before they knew only one way to fight. Now they know many ways. That is not weakness. That is strength. It is cowardice. You teach them to hide, to run, to gang up on opponents instead of facing them with honor. Taemin's expression did not change. Let me tell you something about honor, Commander. On Earth, humans had many warriors who believed in honor, who believed in facing enemies fairly, who thought it was dishonorable to use tricks or ambushes. Do you know what happened to them? What? They died. They died while the smart warriors lived, and the smart warriors became our ancestors. Your species is strong. You have always been strong, so you could afford honor. Humans were never strong enough for honor. We had to be smart or go extinct. We chose to be smart, Rokhtar's claws flexed. The matriarch may support this foolishness. I do not. When the trials come, your tricks will fail. The cubs will die as they always have, and they will die knowing they abandoned their heritage for nothing. Maybe, Taemin said calmly, or maybe they will all survive. And you will have to ask yourself why you accepted so much death for so long. The commander left without responding. That night, Haewon ran one final war game with the cubs. It was the most complex scenario yet. 15 enemy pieces surrounded 30 ally pieces. The allies were weaker, less experienced in a dangerous area. This is the trial, she said simply. What do you do? The cubs gathered around the table. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Bora reached out and moved several pieces. We do not meet them head-on, she said. We split into groups, small teams. We use the terrain to separate them. Youngsu nodded and moved more pieces. The adults will expect us to come to them. Instead, we choose where we fight. We lead them into places that help us. Yunha added her own moves. And when we fight with numbers. Never one cub against one adult. Always 3 cubs against one adult. Other cubs joined in. They planned routes and ambush points, backup plans and escape routes. They argued and discussed and refined the strategy. The humans watched without saying a word. Finally, Bora looked up. Is this right? Taemin smiled. There is no right or wrong. There is only what works and what does not. You will find out in a few days. Will this work? Another cub asked nervously. I do not know, Taemin admitted. But I know this, you have a plan. You have training. You have each other. That is more than any other group of cubs has ever had. Whether it is enough, we will see. The cubs looked at each other. Fear and excitement mixed in their eyes. They were about to try something no Vraxel had ever attempted. They were going to fight as humans fought, as prey animals turned predators fought, and the galaxy would never be the same. The night before the trials, the cubs could not sleep. They sat together in their sleeping quarters, checking equipment and talking in low voices. Some were confident. Others were terrified. All of them knew that tomorrow would change everything. Haewon found them there at midnight. She carried a data pad and a projection device. Come with me, she said. One more lesson. They followed her to the training hall. The large room was empty and dark. The humans had set up chairs in a circle. Taemin and Daehyun were already there, waiting. When all 30 cubs were seated, Haewon activated the projection device. An image appeared in the center of the circle. It showed a planet, blue and green and beautiful, Earth. I want to tell you about humanity, she began. Not about our wars or our strategies, about where we came from, about what made us who we are. The image zoomed in, showing forests and plains. Animals appeared, large predators with teeth and claws, fast hunters with sharp senses. Millions of years ago, humans were not the top predator on Earth, Haewon said. We were food. We were prey. We were weak and slow. Our claws were tiny and useless. Our teeth could barely tear meat. We had no armor or poison or natural weapons. She showed images of ancient humans running from predators, hiding in caves, living in constant fear. Everything on our world was better at fighting than we were, Daehyun added. Big cats could tear us apart. Wolves hunted in packs. Bears were stronger. Snakes had venom. Even small animals were dangerous to us. So how did we survive? Bora asked the question they all wondered. We learned, Taemin said simply. We learned that we could not beat predators in a fair fight. So we stopped fighting fair. The images changed. Now they showed humans making tools, sharp rocks tied to sticks, weapons that gave them reach. Then came images of humans working together, groups hunting large animals, not with strength but with strategy. We learned to think further ahead than any animal, Haewon explained. A lion thinks about the next meal. Humans thought about next week, next month, next year. We prepared. We planned. We saw patterns, Youngsu leaned forward. But that just made you survive. How did you become the strongest? Taman smiled slightly. We realized something important. Being strong is not the same as winning. A lion is stronger than a human, but a human with a spear can kill a lion. A bear is more powerful than a human, but a human can dig a pit, cover it with leaves, and trap the bear without ever fighting it directly. We learned to change the rules, Daehyun said. Every animal fought in the same way their ancestors fought. They used the same methods, the same instincts. But humans kept changing. We tried new things. When something worked, we kept it. When it did not work, we tried something else. The images now showed human civilizations, cities, armies, spaceships. Eventually, we did not just survive, Haiwan said. We conquered. Every predator that once hunted us became scared of us. Not because we grew stronger claws, but because we kept getting smarter. She turned to face the cubs directly. Your people are already strong. You are natural predators, born hunters. You have every physical advantage, but you have been using the same methods for generations. The trials have not changed in hundreds of years. Every year, cubs die in the same ways, making the same mistakes. Tomorrow, you are going to do something different, Taman said. Something your people have never done before. And the warrior lords are going to hate it. They will call you cowards, cheaters. They will say you have abandoned the Vraxel way. The cubs shifted nervously. This was what they feared most. Not death, but shame. Let me tell you what shame really is. Taman continued, his voice hard. Shame is accepting that 7 out of 10 cubs must die. Shame is calling it tradition instead of tragedy. Shame is knowing there is a better way but refusing to try it because that is how we have always done it. Yunha spoke up, her voice uncertain. But what if we fail? What if the plan does not work and we all die? Then you die trying something new, Daehyun replied. You die having tried to save each other instead of just yourselves. Is that worse than dying the old way, alone for nothing? The cubs were silent, thinking. Haewon pulled up a new image. It showed a battle from human history. A small army defending a bridge against impossible odds. These soldiers knew they would probably die, she said. But they had a plan. They had each other. They had purpose. And because they worked together, because they thought strategically, some of them survived. Without strategy, all of them would have died. She looked at each cub. Tomorrow, 15 adult warriors will enter the hunting grounds. They are experienced, strong, skilled. They expect you to fight like cubs always fight, one at a time, seeking individual glory. They have prepared for that. But we are not fighting that way, Bora said, understanding. No, Taemin agreed. You are going to do something they have never seen before. You are going to fight like humans. And that gives you a chance. Just a chance? A nervous cub asked. No one can promise you victory, Taemin said honestly. The adults are still dangerous. You might still lose, but you have something no other cubs have ever had. You have knowledge, training, strategy, unity. That is more than just a chance. That is hope. Daehyun stood up. Let me tell you the most important thing about tomorrow. The warrior lords think the trials are about testing individual strength. They are wrong. Starting tomorrow, the trials become about something else. They become about showing that there is a better way. That thinking matters as much as fighting. That teamwork is not weakness. Even if we lose, Yongsoo said slowly, we will show them something new. Yes, Haiwan confirmed. You will show them that cubs do not have to die by the dozens. You will show them that the old ways are not the only ways. Win or lose, you change everything tomorrow. The cubs sat with this for a long moment. The fear in their eyes began to shift. It did not disappear, but it mixed with something else. Determination, purpose. Let us go over the plan one more time, Bora said. I want everyone to know exactly what to do. They spread out the maps. For the next 2 hours, they reviewed everything. Entry points, rally positions, team assignments, signals, backup plans, contingencies. The humans watched them work. These were not the same confused cubs from 2 weeks ago. These were soldiers. Young soldiers, yes. Scared soldiers, certainly. But soldiers nonetheless. Finally, as dawn approached, Taemin called for their attention. Before you go rest, I want to say one more thing. Tomorrow, you are going to face the hardest challenge of your lives. You are going to fight opponents stronger and more experienced than you, and you are going to do it while everyone watches and judges you. He paused. But remember this. The adults are strong, but they trained alone. They think alone. They fight alone. You are weaker individually, but you are stronger together. Every tactic we taught you, they do not know. Every strategy you practiced, they have not prepared for. Every advantage they have in strength, you match with intelligence. More than that, HFY added. You have something they lost a long time ago. You have each other, not as competition, not as rivals, as allies, as teammates. As a unit, Daehyun smiled. The adults will enter those grounds thinking they are hunting cubs. They are wrong. They are facing something the Vraxil have never created before. They are facing a military unit, and they have no idea what that means. The cubs looked at one another. In their eyes, the humans could see it. The fear was still there, but so was trust. Each cub knew that the others would fight for them, would protect them, would die for them if necessary. Get some rest, Taemin said. Tomorrow you make history. The cubs filed out slowly. Some gripped each other's shoulders as they left. Others exchanged the hand signals they had learned. The nervous chatter had stopped. Now there was only calm focus. When they were gone, the three humans sat alone in the dark training hall. Do you think they can do it? Taehyun asked quietly. I think they have a chance, HFY replied. The tactics are sound. The training was good. They learned fast, but Taehyun heard the uncertainty in her voice. But they are still cubs facing adult warriors. Strategy only takes you so far. In the end, they still have to execute, still have to stay calm, still have to trust each other when everything goes wrong. Taemin stared at the map of the hunting grounds. They will surprise the adults. That much I'm certain of. Whether that surprise is enough, he shook his head. We will see. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the sky. In a few hours, the trials would begin. 30 cubs would enter the hunting grounds. 15 warriors would hunt them, and nothing would ever be the same. The sun rose over Kethmora, painting the hunting grounds in shades of red and gold. Thousands of Vraxil gathered on the elevated observation platforms. They came from all over the planet to watch the trials. It was tradition. It was sacred. It was the day when cubs proved they deserved to live. The matriarch sat in the highest seat, her ancient eyes watching everything. Around her, the warrior lords stood in their ceremonial armor. Commander Rokhtar was among them, his face set in a grim expression. Below, in the preparation area, the 15 adult warriors made ready. They were the best fighters the Vraxil had. Each one had survived their own trials years ago. Each had won countless battles since. They wore light armor that did not slow them down. They carried ceremonial blades that could cut through stone. They were confident. Why would they not be? Cubs were cubs! Strong for their age, yes, but inexperienced. Foolish. They would charge in seeking glory and die quickly. Maybe a few smart ones would survive. That was how it always worked. Commander Rokhtar addressed them. This year's cubs have been trained by humans, he warned. They may try unusual tactics. Do not let this confuse you. They are still just cubs. Treat them as you would any opponent. Show no mercy. That is how we make warriors. The adults nodded. A few smiled. Unusual tactics? What could cubs possibly do that would matter? On the other side of the grounds, the 30 cubs gathered. They wore no armor. They carried no weapons except their natural claws and teeth. They looked small and young against the massive landscape, but they did not look afraid. Bora checked with each team leader. Group 1 ready? Yongsoo nodded. Group 2? Yunha gave a sharp gesture of confirmation. Group 3? Another nod. Support units? Ready. Scouts? Ready. Taemin, HFY, and Daehyun stood nearby. They could not enter the grounds. This was the Cubs' challenge now. All they could do was watch. Remember the plan, Taemin said quietly. Remember your training. Remember each other, the Cubs nodded. Then, without a word, they formed up. Not in a line or a cluster, but in a precise formation they had practiced. Each Cub knew their position, their role, their responsibility. The horn sounded. The trials began. The 15 adults entered the hunting grounds from the south. They spread out in the traditional pattern, each taking a dominant position. They controlled the high ground, the water sources, the main paths. They waited for the Cubs to come. From the north, the 30 Cubs entered. Then they disappeared, not scattered, not running in panic. They vanished into the landscape like smoke, moving to positions they had memorized. The adults waited. Minutes passed. No Cubs appeared. Where are they? One warrior muttered. Hiding, another replied with contempt. The humans taught them to be cowards, but they were not hiding. They were moving. Through the maps they had studied and the terrain they had analyzed, the cubs flowed to their planned positions. They split into groups, 3 teams of 7, 1 support unit of 9. They communicated with hand signals and bird calls they had practiced. The adults grew impatient. This was not how trials worked. Cubs were supposed to attack, to prove themselves. This waiting game was dishonorable. Finally, one adult warrior decided to hunt actively. She was called Sharen, a veteran of many battles. She moved into a canyon, following tracks she spotted. An ambush point, she thought. One cub trying to be clever. She was right about the ambush. Wrong about the numbers. 3 cubs hit her at once from different angles. Not a frontal assault. They came from above, from the sides, using the canyon walls. Bora struck at her weapon arm. Another cub swept her legs. A third went for her off-balance point. Sharen was skilled. She blocked 2 attacks and countered the third. But then 3 more cubs appeared. They did not try to overpower her with wild attacks. They moved with precision, coordinated. When she defended one side, another struck. When she focused on one opponent, the others pressed. She fought hard. She was stronger and faster than any single cub, but there were 6 of them, and they worked together like they shared one mind. Within minutes, she was forced to yield. Not killed, but defeated. The cubs took her weapon and moved on. On the observation platform, the crowd stirred. That was not normal. Cubs did not gang up like that. Cubs fought with honor. Disgraceful, a warrior lord muttered. But the matriarch said nothing. She watched with intense focus. The cubs did not celebrate their victory. They had no time. They regrouped and moved to the next position. The plan was working, but it had just begun. 2 more adults fell in the next hour. Both were isolated by the terrain. Both were overwhelmed by coordinated attacks. Both never faced fewer than 3 cubs at once. The cubs were taking casualties now. A few had injuries, but none had died. The remaining adults realized something was wrong. They tried to regroup, to consolidate their position, but the cubs had anticipated this. Yangsu's team had already prepared choke points. When the adults tried to converge, they found their paths blocked by debris. Rocks rolled down hills. Logs placed across narrow passages. They shaped the battlefield, Haewon whispered to Taemin. They are actually doing it. The adults were forced into longer routes, separated, frustrated, and everywhere they went, cubs seemed to be waiting. Yunha's team executed a perfect hit-and-run attack. They struck an adult from hiding, inflicted damage, then vanished before he could counter. He chased them angry right into another ambush. This time 7 cubs were waiting. The fight was short. By midday, only 8 adults remained standing. 10 cubs had various injuries, but all 30 were still alive. The warrior lords on the platform were in an uproar. This was wrong. This was not how warriors were made. The cubs were fighting like cowards, like prey animals. Like humans, Commander Rokhtar's face was stone. He watched his carefully trained warriors being defeated by children using tactics he did not understand. The 8 remaining adults finally managed to regroup on a defensible hill. It was a strong position, open ground around it, good views in all directions. They formed a defensive circle and waited. The cubs surrounded the hill. They did not attack. Hours passed. What are they doing? A spectator asked. Siege warfare, Daehyun said with satisfaction. They are waiting them out. The adults on the hill grew tired, thirsty. The sun beat down. They had no water, no food. They had expected the trials to be quick like they always were. They had not prepared for a long engagement. The cubs rotated their positions. Some rested while others watched. They had water. They had food. They had planned for this. As the sun began to set, the adults realized they had to move. They could not stay on the hill all night. They had to break out or admit defeat. They chose to break out. Commander Rokhtar led them personally. 8 of the best warriors the Vraxil had, charging down the hill in a coordinated assault. It was impressive, powerful, terrifying. The cubs scattered before them. The adults thought they were winning. They thought the cubs had finally broken. They were wrong. The cubs led them straight into a prepared kill zone, a narrow valley where the high ground belonged to the cubs, where every rock provided cover, where every angle of attack had been planned. The adults found themselves surrounded, tired, and fighting uphill. The cubs did not try to overpower them. They used projectiles, thrown rocks, hit-and-run strikes. They made the adults chase them, wasting their energy. The battle lasted until sunset. In the end, all 8 adults yielded. Some were injured. All were exhausted. All were defeated. The horn sounded. The trials were over. All 30 cubs survived. All 15 adults had lost. The hunting grounds fell silent. The crowd did not know how to react. This had never happened before. Not once in the entire history of the trials. The matriarch rose from her seat. Her expression was unreadable. She descended to the grounds, followed by the warrior lords. The humans came too, keeping a respectful distance. The cubs stood together, exhausted and injured, but alive. All alive. They did not celebrate. They were too tired. They just stood there, supporting each other. Commander Rocktar approached them. His face showed anger, shame, and something else. Maybe respect. Maybe fear. You fought without honor, he said. His voice carried across the silent grounds. You used tricks and deception. You ganged up on opponents. You fought like prey animals, not predators. Bora stepped forward. She was the smallest cub, but she met the commander's gaze without flinching. We fought to survive, she said. We fought to protect each other. We fought to win. Is that not what warriors do? Warriors face their enemies with courage. We faced 15 of your best warriors, Yongsu said. And we beat them. By cheating. By thinking, Yunha corrected. The humans taught us something you forgot. Being strong is not enough. Being brave is not enough. You have to be smart. The matriarch finally spoke. Her voice silenced everyone. Enough. She looked at the cubs, then at the defeated adults, then at her warrior lords. For generations, she said slowly, we have accepted that most cubs must die in these trials. We called it necessary. We called it tradition. But these humans, these weak prey animals, asked a simple question. Why? She gestured at the 30 cubs. These young ones did not cheat. They did not show cowardice. They showed intelligence, adaptation. They fought smarter than their opponents. They worked together while the adults fought alone. The argument lasted for hours. The warrior lords wanted the trials declared invalid. They said the cubs had violated every tradition, that this was not the Vraxil way, that accepting these results would destroy everything their people believed in. But the matriarch stood firm. The cubs entered the grounds. They faced the warriors, they won. Those were the only rules. They fought like cowards, one warrior lord shouted. Taemin stepped forward. He had been quiet until now, letting the Vraxil argue among themselves. But this he could not ignore. Tell me, he said calmly, what is a coward? Is it someone who refuses to fight? These cubs fought. Is it someone who runs from danger? These cubs faced 15 adult warriors. Is it someone who values their life too much? These cubs risked everything. They did not fight with honor, Rocktar insisted. No, Taemin agreed. They fought to win, and they won. Every single cub survived. When is the last time that happened? The warrior lords had no answer. It had never happened. Haewon joined the conversation. You are angry because your beliefs are being challenged. For generations you have told yourselves that only the strong deserve to survive, that individual combat is the only true test. But these cubs prove something else. They prove that intelligence is also strength, that working together is also strength, that survival itself is strength. Our culture is built on individual achievement, another warrior lord argued. If cubs start working in groups, fighting as teams, we lose what makes us Vraxil. No, Bora said. All eyes turned to the small cub. She was exhausted, her scales dirty and scratched, but her voice was clear. We are still Vraxil. We are still strong. We are still hunters, but now we are smart hunters. Is that not better? Yongsu stepped up beside her. The adults were brave. They were skilled. They fought well, but they fought the way Vraxil have always fought. Alone. We fought a new way. Together. And we won. Unha added, the humans did not make us weak. They made us more dangerous. An adult warrior is stronger than any one of us. But 30 of us working together? We are unstoppable. The crowd of spectators began to murmur. Parents of the cubs were realizing something important. Their children had survived. All of them. Every parent who entered this day expecting to lose their cub could now take them home. That changed everything. A mother in the crowd spoke up. My daughter was small, weak. I thought she would die today. But she lived. And you call that wrong? Others joined in. More parents. More families who had lost cubs in previous trials. The warrior lords could argue about tradition and honor. But the families just wanted their children alive. The matriarch raised her hand for silence. When the crowd quieted, she spoke again. I hired the humans for a reason, she said. Our people are strong. But we are not growing. We are not advancing. For every 10 cubs born, only 3 reach adulthood. We tell ourselves this is necessary. But is it? She looked at the warrior lords. You say individual combat is sacred, but we are not individuals anymore. We are a civilization. We face other species who work in groups, who coordinate, who use strategy. How can we compete with them if we refuse to learn these things? You want us to abandon our heritage, Rakhtar said bitterly. I want us to evolve, the matriarch corrected. Every species that survived did so by adapting. The humans adapted. They went from prey animals to spacefaring predators in a few thousand years. Not by growing claws, not by becoming stronger. By becoming smarter, she turned to the cubs. What you did today was not cowardice. It was revolution. You showed that there is another way. A better way. A way where cubs do not have to die by the dozens. Daehyun spoke up. The galaxy is watching your people, matriarch. They see you as strong but predictable, powerful but inflexible. If the Vraxel learn to combine your natural strength with human strategic thinking, you become something the galaxy has never seen before. You become terrifying. The warrior lords looked at each other. They were angry. They were resistant. But they were also thinking, what if the human was right? What if the Vraxel could become even more dangerous by learning to think like prey animals? This will change everything, one warrior lord said slowly. Yes, the matriarch agreed. It will, and it should. Over the following weeks, the debate continued across Kethmora. Some Vraxel embraced the new ideas. Others rejected them completely. But change had begun and it could not be stopped. The 30 cubs who survived became teachers. Bora started classes in strategy and tactics. Young Vraxel came from across the planet to learn. She taught them the war games, the terrain analysis, the importance of thinking ahead. Yongsu wrote guides about battlefield awareness, how to read land, how to use environment as a weapon, how to prepare positions. Adult warriors began reading his work, at first skeptically, then with growing interest. Yunha developed new training programs. She combined traditional Vraxel combat skills with human tactical concepts, individual strength plus group coordination. The result was devastating. Warriors trained in her method could fight alone or as a unit, switching between styles as needed. The humans stayed for several more months, helping to develop the new programs. But eventually their contract ended. It was time to leave. The night before their departure, the matriarch held a private meeting with them. The 30 cubs were there too, along with some of the warrior lords who had reluctantly accepted the changes. You have changed my people, the matriarch said. I do not think you fully understand how much. We just taught them to think differently, Tai Min replied. You taught them to question tradition, Rakhtar said. He was still not happy, but his anger had faded to acceptance. For better or worse, the Vraxel will never be the same. Bora approached Taemin. Will other species be afraid of us now? He smiled. They should be. A Vraxel warrior was already dangerous. A Vraxel warrior who thinks like a human? That is nightmare fuel. Good, Yunha said with satisfaction. Haewon laughed. Just remember what we taught you. Strength is important, but it is not everything. Keep learning. Keep adapting. That is what makes humans successful. We never stop evolving. Will you come back? Hyungsu asked. Maybe, Daehyun said. Or maybe you will come to us. The galaxy is big. Who knows where we will meet again? The cubs wanted to give the humans something, a gift. But what could Vraxel cubs give to humans who had given them so much? Bora had an idea. She presented Taemin with a small stone carved with symbols. This is from the hunting grounds, she explained. It represents survival, adaptation, evolution. We want you to have it. Taemin took the stone carefully. I will treasure it. Tell other humans about us, Yunha said. Tell them that the Vraxel learned. That we changed. That we are not just predators anymore. We are something more. Predators who think, Yongsu suggested. Hunters who plan, Bora added. Warriors who adapt. Yunha finished. Haiwan smiled. We will tell them, and we will tell them that you learned in 3 weeks what it took humanity thousands of years to figure out. That is impressive. The next morning, the humans boarded their ship. The 30 cubs came to see them off. They stood in formation, a unit the way the humans had taught them. As the ship lifted off, Taemin looked down at Kethmora. He could see the hunting grounds in the distance, the place where 30 cubs had changed history. Do you think it will last? Daehyun asked. Or will the old ways come back? Some will always want the old ways, Haiwan said. But those cubs who survived, they will tell their children what they learned, and those children will tell theirs. Change is slow, but it is inevitable. Taemin nodded. We gave them tools, knowledge, perspective. What they do with it is up to them. I think they will do well, Daehyun said. Did you see their eyes? They are not satisfied with just surviving anymore. They want more. They want to excel. That is the real lesson, Taemin said. Not the tactics or strategies. The real lesson is that you do not have to accept limitations, that you can always improve, always adapt, always evolve. The ship left Kethmora behind, jumping to hyperspace. But the impact of 3 humans and 30 cubs would echo across the galaxy for generations. Back on Kethmora, life continued. The next group of cubs began training. Some warrior lords tried to teach the old ways only, but many warriors incorporated the new methods. The cubs learned both individual combat and team tactics. They studied terrain and strategy. They played war games and learned to think ahead. The trials changed too. They were still dangerous, still a test, but the death rate dropped, then dropped again. Within 5 years, 90% of cubs survived. Within 10 years, nearly all of them. The Vraxel began to apply these lessons to other areas. Their military adopted new tactics. Their explorers worked in coordinated teams. Their diplomats learned to think strategically, not just act aggressively. Other species in the galaxy noticed. The Vraxel, always respected for their strength, became feared for their intelligence. They were no longer just powerful. They were unpredictable, adaptive, smart. Bora eventually became a commander herself. She led missions that required both strength and strategy. She won battles that should have been impossible. When asked how, she always said the same thing. I learned from humans. I learned to think like prey that became predators. Yangsu became an explorer. He mapped new territories, always thinking about how terrain could be used, how environments could be understood.